now. Just kind of playing while waiting.
Oh, all good, dude. Hey, Miss Kitty. What are you doing? We'll give it a few minutes and see if we can get some more people in here. Hey, 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 hey! What are you doing? Yo, Sage or Catherine, seriously, I think you're being way too hard on yourself. I think you've been doing a perfectly fine job with your last few debates. You really just you gotta ignore the haters, that the edgy kids in chat. They're always gonna have hateful things to say, but you've been doing a good job. Seriously, don't you can't beat yourself up over that. And I'm sure, well, pretty much everybody else in here, especially Felix, I'm sure will agree with that.
Yeah, I would
I
just
do.
ignore them. I mean,
I do.
what have they contributed to any conversation we've had since they've joined the server? Like, in any way. So if you're gonna listen to someone, it should probably be like Felix or Ban or me or someone who actually uh, makes an effort to do a debate. And if every single one of them is saying that you're doing a better job, then I think you should
Well,
probably just listen to them.
according to them, they're white, and that's all they need.
Yeah.
Dak. Oops, hang on. Um, I'll either let you or Felix decide whenever you guys want to start. I mean, I'm ready but if you guys want to wait a little bit longer to see if anybody else join, but it's entirely. I'll just leave it up to you guys.
I mean, we can give it another 5 minutes.
Miss Kitty.
Does anyone think I sound British?
No.
Nope.
Ruby keeps texting me that I sound British.
You sound like a good old American.
That's what I was thinking.
Miss Kitty. What you doing down there, Miss Kitty? Ooh. Ooh, is there a nice spot to sit there? Are you just gonna come climbing back on the you're just gonna get in the way again.
Are you guys ready, or do you want to wait some more?
I'm down to start whenever.
Give it a few more minutes just in case. We have 4, 5, 6, 7 people.
Yeah,
Maybe some more will
Yeah,
pop in.
usually when funnily enough, whenever like these past debates have happened, like 5 or 10 minutes after we start, we usually get like 2 or 3 more people. So I saw Younglock in here earlier. He just didn't hang around for very long, but he was here.
Yeah, so maybe just a little longer.
What are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? What? What do you want? Why do you always try and look for playtime when I'm busy? Huh? What? What are you doing? What are you doing? What? What do you want? Hey. Don't click on the mouse. That's my mouse. not a mouse for you. What are you looking for? Hey, stop sitting on the keyboard. Hey, what are you doing?
Well, we're probably good to start now.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yep,
Thank
we're
you,
good.
everyone, for joining. Oh,
No, go
okay,
ahead.
cool.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today's resolution is that the average American was better off in the 1940s through to the 1980s than they are today. And so I believe Elid is going to be our affirmative, so he's free to start.
All right. So, oops, hang on 1 second. All right, so thank you. Let me just here. Hang on. I'm gonna turn off push to talk 1 sec. All right. Hopefully that doesn't sound terrible. All right, so I will be arguing that the average American was better off 40, 50, 60, 70, well, 70, about 40, 50, 60 years ago than they are today. My primary argument will be centered around finances and economical data. I believe that there is a fair amount of it that shows that there has been a clear decline, not necessarily in the quality of life, but life opportunities, specifically things like home ownership, college, union participation has significantly declined, while real wages have more or less, they're about the same when adjusted for inflation, if not a little bit higher. The purchasing power of the dollar has just not crashed, obviously, but it has significantly declined. So even though wages themselves, like just the dollar number itself, is higher than it used to be, that dollar simply is not going as far. The post-World War II economic boom, I think, provided significant opportunities, especially in blue-collar manufacturing jobs. I believe that entry-level jobs, especially over the last couple of years, have basically disappeared. The opportunities aren't there as they used to be. I believe that privacy, technology, data collection are all significant contributors to, while there's maybe they've made life easier, I think there's just been a cost of that ease. I've been a strong proponent against data collection. I think it's cancer, it's poison. I think it's significantly disrupting people's lives. I think it's this is America. We've built this country on freedom and liberty, and we're just selling that freedom and liberty to the highest bidder. And I think it's just not it's kind of like an invisible. I guess I don't really know the right word, but it's not necessarily something that's just going to show up on a data or chart. It's something that's there, and I think it's contributing to a decline in society. Marriage rates and divorce rates were higher in the past. Those two generally have moved in unison. When one goes up, the other goes up, so it's not like one's going up and one's going down. But marriage rates were significantly higher in the past. Dating rates have also declined significantly. Social outings, third spaces like like parks, just people going out into spaces that aren't designed for monetary purposes. Europe still has a lot of them. America kind of doesn't, because we're built on cars. Our infrastructure is completely car based, whereas a lot of countries over in Europe aren't, and that has allowed them to build a lot of third spaces that we just don't have. I can't say for certain if we used to have them or not, but I think that's a contributor to just kind of the general social decline. And yeah, that's kind of, I'll stop rambling because that was probably way too much for an opening statement. So sorry. All right, I'm done.
All right, thank you very much, Elid. And for a response, Doc will be going up. Go ahead, Doc.
All right, let me get to it real quick. Okay. The average American in the 1940s to 80s, when compared today, lived in a smaller house, had fewer appliances, had worse medicine, had higher risk of death at their job, had fewer employment options, had more expensive and lower quality food, and had less freedom. With all this being said, why do people think we are worse off today than in this time period? Well, as Brooks Atkinson, a famous theater critic, once put it, in every age, the good old days were a myth. No one ever thought they were good at the time. Part of this is honestly not an issue. If certain things were better back then we absolutely should strive to get those back. However, we should not miss the fact that life in America is better today than it has ever been. To prove this fact, let's see how the average American does today versus any time from the 40s to 80s. We'll call him Joe. Joe today clocks into his average job that makes 9% more inflation adjusted per year. He clocks out after working 6% to 10% less than he would before. He goes to the grocery store and buys food that is 14.5% more affordable compared to annual wage growth. Then he goes home with his car that he would be half as likely to own back then. Finally, he returns home, albeit a more expensive home, but one that is 3 times bigger and is actually plumbed, unlike most homes in the 40s to 80s. Finally, he finishes the day looking at his phone, a computing machine that no one in the past could even imagine existing before. Looking forward into the future, Joe lives to the ripe old age of 79, anywhere from 7 to 11 years longer than he would have in the 40s to 80s. My point with Joe is that no matter how you slice it, the average American is incomparably better off today. In fact, if you were to look at motor crashes, if you want to expand the Joe comparison, he would have had a 6 times less likely chance of being killed in a car collision. To prove my point about medicine, he would have been 3 times less likely to die from a cardiovascular disease. If we're looking at the plumbing thing I mentioned, back in 1940, 45% of households did not have complete indoor plumbing. That is less than 2% today. And it's not just 1940. 1950, it was 35%. 1960, it was around 17%. 1970, it was about 6%. So when you look at everything that I have mentioned, it is completely obvious to any rational person looking in that they would way rather live in an age today than at any point during the 1940s to 80s. And obviously so. When you look at capitalism throughout the last 200 years, it makes life better. So it's no wonder that life is better today than it's ever been. However, people like to look at nostalgia, so they get a incomplete picture when the actual truth is there's essentially no economic reason you would think that today is worse off. Thank you.
You got it. Okay, did you guys want to do just like open talk, or do you want to do like set speaking times?
Ella can decide. I'm fine with either.
Oh, you can't make me decide. I literally am fine with either.
Okay, well, I'll just shut
Okay,
up
Ella,
and you guys handle
Felix,
the
you
show.
decide.
I will shut up and you guys handle the show.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me, Elid?
Well, okay. I mean, I'll just kind of start by throwing out, and I'm obviously not. I try not to be like the hardest core. Oh, the past was so much better. I'm just kind of trying to work off just some very basic economic numbers. So one of them, I just have a couple of them. This isn't like just crazy in depth. But one of them, and this one was kind of, I think they've released some updated data semi recently. The average age of the first time home buyer eclipsed. Here, actually, you know what? Let me. Average age of first time home buyer 2025. Oh, yeah, it actually just eclipsed 40 years of age. And that number has been climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing for years now. The median age of all home buyers is 59 years old. I can actually just pull up the National Association of Realtors and I'll copy and paste this website in the chat. So would you say that something like the average age of a first-time home buyer, do you think that number being, over 40 years old, does that sound like younger people have the kind of opportunities that they had in the past?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nuanced. I believe it is 40. I believe the thing you're going to show will show that back then it was around 29 years old at the start of the data, which would be around 1940. However, there are a lot of things to consider in that number. The first off is that we are living 11 years older than we've ever been. So obviously it will skew older. Second is, well, actually to expand on that, since people are more likely to die at a younger age, obviously households will open up. But I don't absolutely think that it would be easier to buy a home today if you're younger. Obviously, there was the GI Bill, which made it easier for vets to own homes. I just don't really think that's a good reason to think that life was better off back then. I mean, sure, at 29 years old, you could own a home faster than a 29-year-old today. However, you're going to live 11 years less, which accounts for the 11-year difference. You're going to have over a 10 times chance of not having indoor plumbing. You're going to have no appliances. So no, I don't really think that's a good reason to think that life was better back then.
Do you have? I'm just googling stuff on the fly.
Yeah, I can give you any source if you're wondering.
Yeah, the average, like just average life expectancy in the U.S. Because you said it's 11 years, like it's like the same, like ratio, I guess. Like the numbers are moving in unison. Do you have a source that says that?
I don't know if I said unison. It actually might be better for my case as it's life expectancy is higher than the difference. But yeah, I can show the mortality rate. Oh no, sorry, that's infant mortality rate.
U.S. life
Let me
expectancy.
grab the life expectancy.
And then while you're doing that, the next number I'm going to bring up is college, specifically 4-year college degrees. And I'll also post this one in chat. Oops, I was in the wrong. Here we go. I posted the other one in general chat. Okay, so this one is the average cost of a 4-year degree adjusted.
I put it in the side chat.
Okay. Oh, cool. Thank you. I'll get back to the life expectancy here in a minute. I'll just finish this tangent. So the average annual tuition and fees at a public 4-year institution back around the early 1960s was, again, adjusted for inflation, about $2,600. Now it is actually, according to this website, gone down over the last few years, which is a little surprising, but okay, cool. It is essentially 4x'd in the last 60 years. The dollar value then was 240. Now it's over 10,000. But again, the adjusted for inflation rate has literally 4x'd. So I would argue that essentially just the opportunities that young people have, especially with higher education, has. I mean, the opportunities just aren't there. They're being priced out. Would you say that that's a fair thing to say?
Fair
I'll just leave it at that.
assertion, yeah.
There you
So,
go.
yeah. I wouldn't say that, and the number one reason I wouldn't say it is because you have to compare to what was happening during the time. Like, for example, yeah, it was cheaper back then, but only around 5% of people had a college education. Now, if you look at today, it's around 40%. So that's about an 8 times increase, which actually surpasses the increase in salaries. So if you're saying they're priced out, well, my question is, wait, why is the amount of people going to college surpassing the amount that the price is going up? So it seems like a demand issue, not the opposite. Like if they were priced out, you'd expect it to go lower, but it's actually increasing every year. And the reason it's increasing every year is because a college degree, now more than ever, is the number one factor when it comes to increasing your salary. And obviously, I'll post my source for that.
Okay, so
Matt wants that.
my rebuttal to that will be debt. There's a lot of borrowing that goes on. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the data that shows credit card debt. I think it's just credit card debt here. You know, again, I'm sorry, I'm googling these things on the fly. Credit card debt in America. Sorry, again, I know. I'm just googling these on the fly. We'll just use the first one that shows up, New York Fed. So, the total total household debt right now is around $13 trillion. Now, obviously, a lot of this has to do with mortgages because house prices are astronomical right now. I don't know what. Okay, here's the LendingTree one. So credit card debt right now, according to LendingTree, is about $1.2 trillion. And again, that's just credit card debt. So obviously, I mean, you know of things, there's scholarships, but a lot of people just borrow. There's the student loan epidemic, which is just, you know, I'm definitely not a free college type of person, but, you know, student loans, I don't think they existed 60 years ago. I could be wrong. You know, somebody could fact check me on that. But I would say that I think it's probably fair to say that just like the debt-based economy is a fairly new thing. I think people in the past probably had more savings. I mean, you know, obviously the dollar itself was stronger, so people were able to save more money. But college in the past, you could just pay for it outright. But now people are taking on debt to attend school. So yes, you could say, oh, the percentage has gone up, but at what cost? You know, people are just borrowing shit tons of money to go for it.
Mm-hmm. The issue is we just have the ability to borrow more than ever. So what I mean by that is, let's say in the 1940s, if you ran out of money, you just couldn't buy anything, which is actually really bad. So if you compare Joe today versus the 1940s, if Joe today ran out of money and he couldn't buy food, he would use a credit card. If Joe back then couldn't buy food because he had no money, he just wouldn't buy food. So I don't know if it's actually that big of an issue when you look at the fact that that people are able to use credit cards more when it comes to mortgages and college degrees. They far, like all studies show that the amount you make from a college degree supersedes the amount that you're borrowing to do it. So I don't think it's a good argument for those reasons. I think it would have been better if people in 1940s to 1980s could have put more on credit if it meant that they could not be as food insecure, especially when compared to today.
Oops. Well, okay. So the thing that you just said about how a 4-year degree, I already forgot what your exact words were.
Uh-huh.
It's something more. It's something like a 4-year degree will pay off the student loans. Am I understanding that right?
Say that one more time.
Like a 4-year degree will allow somebody who borrowed money to pay for the degree to pay off the loans, usually.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a choice. Do you accept the trade-off of a college degree when you could be taking on loans? If you want to save today, then you shouldn't get a college degree. If you believe in the future wages will overproduce it, then you absolutely should get a college degree. So it just depends on the person. I like the fact that there's more choice today than there ever was.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. No, I get it. I get what you're saying.
yeah, like you got to put it into context of what credit is used for. I mean, yeah, it sucks that we have a lot of debt, but it also sucks for the average Joe in 1940 who didn't have that debt but couldn't buy food, couldn't buy gas, couldn't see a doctor, couldn't go to emergency travel, couldn't uh, buy supplies for his kids on credit. So I mean, if you think of credit almost as a safety net, which a lot of people think it is, given the fact that no time in history, people mention no one has $1,000 today. No one did before either. Uh, I think it's actually sad that people in 1940 didn't have a safety net. But I guess I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, given the fact that statistically speaking, cars are safer, we have better health care than ever, our homes are 10 times more likely to be plumbed than ever. Like it's like 2% chance that a home isn't plumbed, and usually those are just vacant homes. The fact that infant mortality is also down around 10 times. The fact that we're more likely to own cars, we're more likely to have air conditioning, we're less likely to be food insecure, we're less likely to be in poverty. The lower class is lower than it's ever been. Like, don't you think all those are like pretty persuasive arguments that you'd rather live today than ever? Not even then, not even mentioning the fact that we have phones, which is the greatest computing power ever made. I mean, people in the 1940s couldn't even imagine that, right?
Yes, I see what you're saying, but if all those things were truly contributing to sorry, if all those things were truly contributing to life being better, why are fertility rates crashing? Why are marriage rates crashing? Why are people being less social? Why are we seeing significant? I think it's a significant rise in gun violence, especially here in the U.S. Again, you'll have to fact check me. I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not, but I think there's a rise in mental illness. So if we truly were, and not to mention the wage gap between the top and the bottom is it's growing wider and wider and wider with every year.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
if we're living in this supposedly best time ever and the easiest life, why aren't we seeing a boom in childbirth? Why aren't we seeing a boom in marriage rates? Why aren't the actual numbers going up and when they're clearly going down?
Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with the easiest one, which is fertility rates. Actually, it's the opposite of what you said. Countries that are poorer, more violent, actually have higher fertility rates. And the reason for that is that we have a need for survival. So back in the 1800s is when we had the most children. The average person would have like 8 children. If you look in Africa, they have the highest fertility rate. Who has the lowest fertility rate? It'd be like Japan, one of the best countries in the world. It'd be Europe. any any country that has a higher life expectancy actually has a lower fertility rate. It actually shows that we as people are no longer in a we must survive scenario. So we can be like, oh, do I want a kid? Maybe it works for me, maybe it doesn't. Meanwhile, the person 1800, they don't know if they're gonna live till tomorrow. They need kids to work on the farm. So yeah, I'd say it's the opposite. I think if you look at any country, fertility rates will go down as time gets better. If we're looking at mental illness, I don't think the average person knew what mental illness was in the 1940s to 1980s. I think that we're more aware of mental illness than any other time period. I think if you were to look at suicide rates, I think it goes with the fact that life expectancy is higher. Usually countries that have really high suicide rates are really cold areas, really rich areas, or really war-torn areas. Which is a fun dynamic there, right? Gun violence is an interesting one, which isn't actually necessarily higher than it ever was. In the 1990s, it peaked, and now it's going down essentially every year. Am I missing any point that you mentioned?
I have no idea, but I mean, even if you did, it's all right. I think you did a good job.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? Like, fertility rates doesn't go with if life is good, because if it did, then like I'd want to live in the 1800s. I think the fact that they felt that they needed 10 kids because like 7 or 8 of their kids would die is a fact that that time period was pretty bad. Meanwhile, today, infant mortality is better than it's ever been, you know?
Well, so okay. I mean, I definitely, I don't disagree with
Oh,
you, but
I did miss one. The
yeah,
divorce rate.
keep going.
Yeah, the divorce rate
Yep.
is because it was illegal to have no-fault divorces.
Well, I
Like,
also tied in marriage and divorce because those two usually move in unison.
but now we're seeing like the first time in history where women who would have to be with abusive partners now can be free from them. We're seeing a time period where people can decide whether to be in a relationship with someone and not be looked down on in society. I think this is the first time in history where people really could feel comfortable not being into like the opposite sex or being into anyone or being able to leave an abusive partner. I think we can't really say it's a bad thing when the alternative back then was you had to stay with an abusive partner and you couldn't leave unless if you could absolutely approve it, and a judge who probably would rule against you approved your divorce. In fact, Las Vegas, it was actually known, if you watched films back then, they'd mentioned going to Las Vegas, and that was an homage to Las Vegas being the only area in America where you could legally get a no-fault divorce.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
No,
all that's good.
that's good.
I think
Yeah.
it makes marriages better.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do think that. I mean, divorce rates being lower is a good thing. It's just I think that if we're, you know, it, society being good and being like life being better, at least in my mind, you would see. Because I think marriage and having families is. I mean, would you say that getting married and having kids? I'm not going to call it the peak of life, but would you say that that is something that we normally in a strong, stable society should be striving for, like at the bare minimum, especially when we clearly have more than enough resources. We have, again, we're if we're going to argue that this is the best time, shouldn't raising a family be the easiest and most accessible that it's ever been?
Well, to start off, it is easier than it's ever been. But what I will say is I only want good marriages to survive. I don't want marriages that have one partner being abusive to survive. I don't want marriages where it's a loveless marriage to survive. I don't want marriages where one partner is trying to kill the other to survive. I can actually send a video. It's from Adam Ruins Everything, explaining why divorce is actually a really good thing. I think marriage rates should be at the exact level where only good marriages survive. And I think that should be the majority, and I think it already is. I think if you look at divorce rates, the 50% figure is, or I think it's 40 to 50% figure is misleading, because the number one marriage that is likely to last is the first marriage, which I think is around 70 to 80%. So I will post into chat the Adam Ruins Everything marriage, which explains how horrible the hold on, I said that wrong. Not marriage, divorce, which explains how horrible it was for a woman to the fact that they had to stay with an abusive partner. Let me send that in. I mean, like, don't you agree that marriages being higher isn't a good thing if it comes at the cost of women having to stay with abusive partners?
No, I completely see what you're saying. I don't disagree, or I do. Okay, I don't. I think staying in an abusive relationship is obviously not good, and they shouldn't. What I will say though is, in the age of technology, in the age of social media, and this connected age that we're in, wouldn't you say that it would be easier to find those stronger relationships because you just have so much more access? You literally have access to the whole world, right? It's not like it
Yeah,
was
well,
back
it
in the
means
50s when you were in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere and you had two choices. You have literally millions of choices now. You can
yeah.
find those good
Well,
people that work with you.
well, again, at what cost? Like we can say that marriages are like worse off because of the rate, but the only like thing we can compare is to the 1990s where divorce became legal, and then before. And before, we don't know how many of those were good marriages because the woman couldn't leave. For most of American history, including the 1940s and 80s, it was legal for the husband to abuse their wife. There were literal uh, warnings from police saying, hey, you better stop being so loud about how you beat your wife because we're getting noise complaints. So I think you can't even make a comparison because the only comparison you can make is in the 1940s and 80s is a comparison that we don't know how many women were being horrifically abused, right? Like sure, everyone should be happily married. But what if like 60 or 70% of women in the 1940s and 80s were abused? Like we don't know that number.
Well, couldn't you just, I mean, ask your grandma if your grandpa beat her when she was younger? I mean, I'm not
Well,
saying that
my
doesn't
grandma
happen,
would
but
say yes. My
okay,
grandma would say yes,
well,
and it
okay,
was incredibly normalized.
okay.
But you see what I'm saying?
No, I
Like
get what you're saying.
it's impossible to say, because if the debate was should everyone be in a happy marriage, yes. Is marriage better in the 1940s and 80s? 100% no. I mean, the fact that it was legal and socially acceptable to beat your wife immediately says that it was worse, in my opinion.
Okay. Um, did you want to ask a question, or if not, I can move on to another piece of data that I can present, unless you wanted to bring a
I
topic
mean,
in.
I asked about like all the points. I think I said like, how would you not like if we're just speaking economically, would you not want to live in the time period that you make 9% more inflation adjusted, you work 6 to 10% less hours, your groceries are 14.5% more affordable compared to wage growth, your house is 3 times bigger, and you have the same chances back then as owning a home when you look at uh, home ownership rates. And wouldn't you rather live in a time where you, on average, live 7 to 11 years longer than at any point, while also living in a house that is 10 times more likely to be plumbed?
So my rebuttal to that will be the dollar's value has significantly declined with money printing and inflation. I mean, you can just look at any chart that shows the um, I don't know what it's measured in specifically, but just like the base value of the dollar has dropped off a cliff since the Federal Reserve was created way back in 19 whatever. And part of that is just normal economics. I'm not trying to say, oh, we should go back to pre-Fed. I'm a fan of decentralizing it, but that's a whole different topic. We don't need to get into that. I think that bigger homes have come at a significantly increased price. I think smaller starter homes not existing is a problem because, again, it's like the average home price is, I'm gonna look this up. Sorry that I'm Googling things on the fly.
I mean, we all know it's higher,
Yeah, it's
like by a lot.
it's insanely higher.
But my question is, what's the detriment of it? Like, we
Well, you
know
can't
that
buy a
despite
home
the
now.
fact, well, hold on, to finish the thought,
Yep.
we know that despite the increased price, home ownership is actually a little higher than the average in 1940s to
But the
80s.
average age is significantly higher.
Hold on, the average age is as old as the increased age of life expectancy. We know that your house is more likely to be bigger, have more appliances, have air conditioning, have heating, have plumbing. The fact that they used harmful chemicals in the houses back then, entire houses had to be destroyed for the fact that
Asbestos.
new regulations have to make sure it's non-cancerous.
Yep. No, I mean that's
So,
yep.
so
I
it's
agree
like
with
it's
that.
like at what cost, right? So it's like, yeah, it's more expensive, but then we have to factor in the fact that the house probably won't kill you like it would before,
Yeah. But again,
So
I
how do you
think
know
that
it's
the death
better
of the
or worse,
well, I think that the death of the starter home has. I mean, again, it's pricing younger people out. I will say with the average life expectancy thing. So I'm just working off of personal experience here, and I know that's finicky, but I'm gonna say it anyway. My one remaining parent is 65 years old, and he already got dementia. So he's living in an assisted living home. He's 65 years old. He was retired for like 2 years, and he's already basically he's not like sitting in his own piss yet, but I mean he can't cut his nails. He can't cook. He basically can't do anything. And so I think that this push towards making people live significantly longer, I'm not going to say, oh, why, but at the same time, like, I don't want to live past, like, 70 or 75. Like, why would you want to live to the point where you can barely move, you can't think, you're at significant risk of developing things like Alzheimer's and dementia where you're going to forget your entire family, you're going to be completely dependent on others. Like, what if, I mean, in 40, 50 years, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, I'm not expecting to be able to retire, and obviously that's a whole nother discussion, but like, if you reach the age of 60, 65 and you can't retire and your finances aren't great, but let's say you wake up one day and you start forgetting things and you suddenly realize, uh-oh, you're in deep shit. What's the cost of trying to live longer?
I mean, I don't think there is a cost. Like, everything that you can mention, usually, like, it'll obviously get better with science. Everything does,
Well, I
but
assume it will.
I don't think it's fair to say what's the cost of living longer when I think
Well, there's
it
a
would be
significant
just as
cost.
bad. Oh, well,
Look at
it would be
Japan.
just as bad. Hold on. It would be just as bad before, right? So, for example, if the life expectancy was like 60, then you're gonna have different health problems, and people back then would say, "Well, why should I live that long when cardiovascular disease will take me out?" But today, cardiovascular disease, despite the fact that we're 11 years older, we are way less likely to die of it because medicine has fixed it. Every single issue due to aging, we are now fixing because we have an older population. So as new issues arise due to the fact that life is so good today, we're now able to fix even those issues. So I don't think there's any evidence that it's just like non-fixable and there's no point to it. When we fix every single issue that every generation would mention as the issue with getting older, you know?
Well, so, and again, this is just my personal experience, but from what I've heard from the general medical field, something like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, like those specific diseases, again, obviously science is going to grow and improve. You know, I do think there's probably going to be a limit because humans have limits, but as of right now, the general medical consensus is that those three specific diseases really, like, they're just not curable. Again, in the current medical industry, it's kind of similar. Well, it's not similar to cancer, but it's kind of the same as, like, okay, we don't like these things just because of the way that the human brain is designed. It's just not like, once something starts happening to it, you really can't reverse it.
Yeah, it's hard once it like gets into its like larger stages. But when it comes to even dementia today, like we're already making breakthroughs. We're treating dementia better than ever. Multiple types of dementia is almost like completely stopped and all. We
That
learn more
that's
about
not You
dementia
can't
every
stop
year, and the
dementia.
fact that like we've had like 20 years and we're already developing ways to treat a lot of different forms of dementia is actually kind of crazy. I think it's insane that we're already doing it. It's not about finding a cure. It's about the fact like we're already understanding dementia and we're already fixing and treating dementia better than we've ever been. And we're
It can't be
already finding
fixed though.
patterns to find dementia before it can be incurable. Like we're already doing these things.
Yeah, but it's not actually fixable though. I know you said we're like, it's not, like, unless you have a source that shows some medical breakthrough that I haven't been told of by, like, my specific doctors, like, dementia, Alzheimer's has no fix. Like, once you get it, the only thing you can do is comfort. Like, you can't, like, you can give people pills and stuff, but even that doesn't, like, the slowing down of the symptoms is almost negligible.
Yeah, I mean, here I'll send in a source of what we done
That's
with the
great.
fact that we've have like what is like essentially only 10 years of research into dementia. Like this is such a new field that we're treating. We don't really know how much we can fix it, but the fact remains that not only are we finding ways to prevent dementia now, we're just starting to learn dementia, and we fixed essentially every single issue that any generation mentions as a reason not to get older. I think the fact that we're living 11 years longer is an absolutely great thing. I think that humanity should strive to live as long as possible. I think that science should continue to develop. And I think the fact that we are more likely to live in air conditioning, we're more likely to have heating, we're more likely to make more money, we're more likely to be able to buy affordable food when compared to wages, we're more likely to live in plumbed in homes. I think in every single way, like if you're just looking objectively speaking, you'd way rather live in today's age than in the 40s to 80s.
So I'll bring up one more um, note that I had on here on my list, and that is
Uh-huh.
privacy. I think you mentioned it earlier, but we'll just kind of touch on it. Um,
Yeah.
but my main thing is obviously data collection, kind of the subscription based economy that we currently have. Cell phones, computers, cars. I mean, my aunt drives a car that requires her to sign in to a computer, otherwise, it doesn't start. Um, and I mean, I think that this is just a crazy, I don't know if violation of privacy is the right word, because I know your main rebuttal is probably gonna be, oh, people are signing on to it and whatever, and okay, that's fair. But in a lot of instances, I think that we are signing, like, you're signing your life away and your privacy, and these, like, companies and corporations can literally, like, there's refrigerator, like smart refrigerators can literally track what's in your fridge, and they can give you personalized advertisements that, well, but hey, you're low on yogurt, you're low on milk. Why don't you go buy some more? Um,
Uh-huh.
and I think this is a blatant invasion of people's private lives and their privacy. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I mean, think about it like this, right? I think technology has gotten to the point where, yeah, they can know like new things to maybe make a profit. But in the 40s to 80s, there was the Red Scare. I mean, every American was being taught to spy on your neighbor in case they were a communist. Hundreds of thousands of mail were being opened, wiretaps were everywhere. The Supreme Court was ruling against your right to privacy versus today, it's not ruling against your right to privacy when it comes to governments. Like, yeah, you can be against data collection, but the difference is one of them was the government, the entire government, telling you to spy on your neighbors because they might be a communist, versus today, where it's like a corporation wondering what kind of yogurt you like more. I think one is clearly worse. And yeah, I mean, all not just that, but you could just not buy the appliance. Versus back then, you
Oh,
can't
totally.
just not subscribe to the federal government.
Well, okay, here's actually, so I know right now in the modern economy you can not buy subscription based things. I mean, I don't own a single smart appliance, I never will. But let's just say at some point, and again, and this is just a pure hypothetical, I don't want to say that it's
Sure.
guaranteed, but let's say in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the only options become you have to subscribe, you have to buy this, you have to do this, because the market becomes just 100% things like smart appliances. What happens then? What happens? You literally do not have a choice but to subscribe to the system.
Well, who knows? I mean, I remember at one point everyone was saying that everyone was going to live in the Meta glasses, and people were seriously asking me about that. There's really no way to predict it.
True.
Like, if that were, yeah, yeah, right. Like, if that were to exist, I wouldn't be happy with everyone being forced to use smart appliances, and I just don't think it will happen. Not to mention the fact that today, which is the argument that we're having, you don't have to buy a smart appliance. Meanwhile, in the 40s to 80s, you couldn't just unsubscribe from the government. Whether you liked it or not, even if you didn't live in America, if you had any ties to America, a lot of times your mail would be open. You could get wiretapped if a neighbor who didn't like you said that you were a communist. You could be questioned for it. I think in any way, if you were to look at surveillance, one is maybe a corporation wants an ad of you, like ad targeting you, where like they think you like a specific yogurt better because you said something in your phone, or you looked up something and therefore like an AI model can tell you what color a teapot is, versus in the 1940s and 80s, hey, if you're a communist, or if even if we think you're a communist, we're going to track you down and no one's going to stop us.
Okay, so so just kind of working off this government communism topic, um, and this, I'll just kind of throw this into like a random question. Um, let's take a guy like Dwight D. Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, great guy.
Yeah.
Would you say that the government under Eisenhower was, how do I word this? Um, let's take out the communism part and just look at like all of their other domestic policies and just kind of like the general scope of the government. Would you say that the overall scope of the government was more is powerful the right word? I don't know. We'll go with powerful. Would you say that it's more powerful or less powerful than the government today of either Trump or Biden?
I mean, I don't think they had the potential to be as powerful. If you were to look at back then, obviously they didn't have the technology that we had today, didn't have the same GDP that we had today. I mean, like, every single generation of America, the government is going to get a little more powerful because we've grown so much GDP wise and we've grown so much technology wise. But if you were to ask, like, who's more moral, like, I don't know. Eisenhower expanded the FDA, the NSA was created, the CIA was doing covert operations, not just foreign, but domestically with U.S. citizens. They were focusing on like dissolving labor organizations. They were targeting Communist Party members and suspected Communist Party members. If you're talking about like morality wise, whether they were more likely to surveil on us, it would be way more likely. And if they had the technology that we had today, I mean, they would know whoever was a communist. So I'm very happy with the fact that nowadays the government doesn't have as much moral leaning as they would during Dwight Eisenhower.
Okay, I'm gonna scroll up in chat. There was a question. So, Sir Vladimir Putin had a question, and I think I'll just let you, Dak, answer this one. But it was,
Mhm.
how. Let's see, how do I word this? How.
Well, I can read it. I can
Oh
read
yeah,
it.
Felix, yeah, you go ahead.
So Vladimir Putin says, my question for both is how they think the rapid advancement of technology may make people afraid for the future. The stability of the future remains unproven, and it weighs heavily on a number of people's minds. For both of you.
Well, I think every generation has been scared of technological growth because, by definition, it's the unknown, and everyone has the fear of unknown. My general answer is the fact that technology has made life easier for every American. No time in history would the average American be able to just tap on their phone and get, uh, whether it's McDonald's or the groceries or work from home or anything else. I think technology has absolutely made everyone's lives better. And if we're talking about future technological growth, I think it would be about the same thing. I think when you look at AI optimization, which I sent a lot to Elid, it shows that not only does it waste less materials, but it works really well with environmental regulations because it's able to optimize to meet the environmental regulation. It costs the company way less, so more companies that actually follow environmental regulations are able to survive. It helps the planet. So yeah, I think technological innovations that we're seeing today will absolutely be a great thing. And I think that any fear of it is just a normal fear of the unknown that we've had for every technological innovation.
Yeah, I will agree to a certain extent. I do think that there is a significant fear of the unknown. Um, I think that technology progressing, I mean, it's been progressing for hundreds of years. You know, people were probably afraid of paved roads back in the day. Um, I am a firm believer that technological progress. I'm not going to say it's not important. I just think that we should take precautions and that we should allow people to adapt instead of speed running everything so that there's less disruptions to people's lives. I think people should be allowed to kind of settle into habits and rhythms and not have constant new things thrown at them. I mean, iPhones come out, a new iPhone comes out every year, and it's like, get the new iPhone, get the new iPhone, get the new this, get new that. And I think there's a significant level of, I don't know if overstimulation is necessarily the right word because that's just a whole entire other topic on its own. Um, but I think that this, this just the constant new updates. I think the progression of technology is becoming exponential and not linear. And I mean, humans, we're dumb monkeys. I mean, we're not. I would say that we're not really supposed to be designed for the fast level of technological progression that we're seeing now. I think it's definitely a lot different than it used to be. I think technology development was slower in the past, and it actually allowed people to adapt better. And now it's being speed ran, and everything's being thrown at you at light speed. And I don't think that's a good thing.
A little disagreement. I think that throughout the last 100, 200 years, we've been progressing exponentially the entire time. In the 1920s, we started to build cars, and then in the 1960s, we were flying in outer space. And I think if you told someone in the 1920s that we would do that in 40 years, no one would believe you. I think that humanity is really the only organism that fits the exponential growth that we have. I think that we're predetermined to evolve in the way of intellectualism. Uh, I think that every accelerationism towards technology, albeit if there's obvious things that we could like make sure don't happen, obviously, like we shouldn't build like a button that says like, hey, the whole world will end if you press it. But
We already have that
every
button.
technology, yeah, nukes. Which
Yep.
actually, I'd want to talk about nukes,
Yes, let's
because
please.
I think nuclear weapons have actually made the world more peaceful. But discussion
I
for another day.
strongly disagree.
Well, okay, so before nuclear weapons, uh, there were more wars. After nuclear weapons, every superpower wouldn't fight each other. I think there would already be a World War III and IV if we didn't have nuclear weapons. But I would like to a lot of time to prepare on that, and I guess it doesn't really have to do with whether today is better than the 1940s, because 1940s had nuclear weapons. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
think
think
we could literally
technological
hold
growth
an
is the
entire debate
reason.
on that, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I think technological advancements is the reason that 2025 is better than the 1940s and 80s, and I think it's going to be the reason that 2060 is better than 2025.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'll just lightly touch on the topic. I think that the threat of nuclear intervention, um, I won't disagree and say that smaller petty wars have. I think they've declined. I don't know if the statistics would necessarily show that because there's still are wars. There's the war in South Sudan right now, and I don't even know. It's not it's war. It's literally just a genocide. Like people talk about genocide all the time. No, there is like a legitimate genocide going on in South Sudan right now. Palestine, Israel, you could say it's a genocide, or really and a war is basically the same thing. There's the conflict in Iran right now. There was the India Pakistan, I think, were the two countries that had that like 2 day conflict. I don't even know what's going on with that because the news conveniently stopped talking about it. So I do think that smaller petty wars. Oh, here's a chart. Oh, that's not. Oh, I think you gotta repost that, dude.
Oh, it did not work.
Nope, it
I was
didn't.
sending you something in just so you can see a visualization, and I think it shows that generally speaking, like uh, war, at least casualties have gone down. I'll send another one that
Yeah,
like proves the point.
I
But
don't necessarily
just to
disagree
add
with
in,
that. I
I
will
don't
say
think nuclear
though.
weapons
Yep.
will always be a good thing. By the way,
Yeah, I think that yes, the smaller petty wars declining is a good thing, but at the same time, the fact that essentially came with the cost of well now everybody has got nukes and we could end the world in 5 minutes. I mean, like, are we really trying to say that's a good thing? I wouldn't.
hard to say. I mean, most experts agree that people's lives were saved, but it's not that nuclear weapons will always be good because the second the nuclear weapon gets used, then all the advantages go out the window. But I guess to go back onto
Yeah, we can
the
talk about
the
that at a
debate
different
on
day.
hand,
Yep.
um, don't you think that? I mean, let's give an example of like purchasing power. You mentioned that the fact that the dollar is weakened. Do you
Yep.
have any example of a time where the dollar didn't weaken or inflation was actually deflation, but the average person's life got better versus worse?
Well, so there was a while ago. I don't know. We'd have to scroll up a ways. There was a chart that I found. I know I posted it somewhere. I don't remember what channel that showed like general economic. I think it was like GDP growth versus decline for the last like 600, 700 something years, and oh yeah, it was like uh it was an article that was written that showed like deflation is the natural outcome of an economy, and it showed like the general swings of inflation versus deflation, And essentially, it actually showed that historically there have been swings of inflation and deflation, and the two basically balanced each other out. Whereas ever since essentially the Great Depression, we have not had an actual period of deflation. Even the Great Recession back in 2009, I think there was a very small time of negative GDP, but there wasn't actual deflation from a money standpoint.
Yeah. Well, if I can answer,
Yep.
the reason that we don't have deflation anymore is because the idea of capitalism is we're supposed to like
Growth.
exponentially
Yeah.
improve. Like
No, I
value
get
is
that.
infinite. So if you're looking at like historically, like if you're let's say you go back 600 years where everything is like pegged to the government. Generally speaking, there will be times of deflation, inflation. You can have one government that starts like skimping off silver, so inflation goes crazy, and another government comes in, they're like, "Hey, that was stupid," and deflation happens because they're no longer doing it. But today, the only times there was deflation was first the Great Depression. It was 10 years of absolute misery. The late 19th century Great Deflation, which was one of the worst recessions in U.S. history. If we're going worldwide, you can look at Japan in the 1990s and 2000s, where they had deflation. And what happened? They went from everyone thinking they would control the world, everything's getting great, to complete economic stagnation, to where no one's saying that anymore. And then the Great Recession happened a little bit, and obviously life became way worse. So I don't really think like purchasing power is a good argument, because any time that we've had any swing in deflation, it's always made everyone's lives worse. So we should instead ask what happens as purchasing power, like as inflation happens. And what has the effect been? Well, we've averaged around 3% inflation, and wage growth has superseded it. We have better technology. People's lives are better. Food growth went below wage growth. So I think it'd be the opposite, right? Like if you're looking at a pure analytical standpoint, wouldn't you want inflation?
Well, so okay, so you said that wage growth has outpaced inflation, right? I think, did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, it has.
Okay. Let me see here.
And in fact, I can show you the
Yeah,
source for
because
that.
I'm just googling some stuff right now.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Um, yeah, because okay, the one.
Here it
So I'm
is.
looking at. Okay.
Here's the source for the fact that it's outpaced inflation.
Yep, that's exactly the one I'm
And
looking at right
it's,
now.
oh, well, great. Yeah, so I did the math, and it is 9% higher than in 1979, which is funny. I was trying to find a source that went before 1979, but I just couldn't find it. Because 1979 was like really high. Like there's a like
Stagflation, yeah.
abnormally high, right? And so when you're looking at the years afterward, 1981, 1983, like all of them are lower. So your best case scenario is it's 9% higher than inflation. Your worst case scenario is it's like I think it was 13% higher. But I went with your best case scenario because I want to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's fair. But so here's I won't disagree that wages have been going up steadily, but would you agree that there's significantly more that people not necessarily have to spend their money on, but this kind of goes back to the whole subscription based society that we have now. You have to pay $10 for this, $15 for that, $10 for this, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're spending, all this money that you might not have been spending in the past that you could have saved, you could have spent on bigger purchases. Would you say that's fair to say?
Good question. And I would say no. I mean, like for example, energy today versus during like Jimmy Carter, like gas is cheaper, energy is cheaper, food actually has been on a lower trend than wages. So I think as I showed before, it's 14.5% more affordable when compared to wage growth. So when it comes to like, I guess more examples, average TV prices are way cheaper. Like if you want a TV that's like pretty small, essentially people will just give it to you because you can't really sell it. Like the TV I have right now would have cost like $300 in 1960, and I got it for free because they didn't want it and no one would buy it. So, and it's perfectly workable, by the way. Still has its
Dude,
plastic
TV
one.
prices
So
are
like,
actually
like
crazy
for
now.
example, like some prices will be higher, but most prices won't. In fact, even in 1940s and 80s, most people had like three channels on their cable that they would pay for, and it'd be more than today. And they'd have to pay more for microwaves, and if they wanted plumbing, well, that's going to be an insane price, and you probably do need plumbing because 40% of the houses didn't have it. So I don't think it's true that we're like spending all that.
Did anybody else have questions aside from Ruby? Ruby, we're not answering your question, by the way. You have to ask a serious question. Otherwise, we're going to
What was
ignore
she
you.
asking?
She asked if we can speak
Dang,
better
she
English.
got me.
Yep.
Felix got me. Life is
Uh-huh.
better in 1940s. There was segregation.
Hell yeah, brother.
That was a good one. That's another thing, right? Like, if you're, I didn't want to mention it
Well,
because,
I,
like,
I was
we're
going
focused
to
on
say
economy,
that I
but
wasn't even going to bring it up because I'm not going to argue against, like, I'm not going to
we
argue
can
and say, oh,
both agree
segregation was better because it
segregation is
wasn't.
better today. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can agree.
Yep, I 100%
Like,
agree.
rights for African Americans and everything's better. But I mean, that kind of goes to another thing. It's like, don't you agree that the fact that we have more people who are mentally ill today is actually better, given the fact that no one knew what mental illness was back then? Like, isn't it good that we're treating these people versus back then, where it's like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, no one cares, or we're gonna lobotomize you?
Well, I'd have to think about that and maybe look at some
Good
more
point,
hard
though, right?
numbers and hard data.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree.
Like,
I think,
I don't know, the fact like
yeah.
if you're like a woman and you like acted out too much, you could get lobotomized. Probably like put down the mental illness number a little bit, you know, from how I see it. So I think
Bro, no,
like
no
everything
kidding.
that most people, yeah,
No kidding. I think we should actually bring back mental hospitals, but not in the way that necessarily they were in the
not in the way of
past.
lobotomies.
Yes, just in the way of like putting away people that, like, dude, I've been binge watching body cam videos recently.
Hmm.
It is frightening that we share a planet with, like, there's people out there that are just, they do not deserve to breathe the same air that we do. Like, I'm sorry. It is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
Yeah,
Some of them are crazy.
all the liberals, dude, 100%. All anybody who votes Democrat, throw them in prison or throw them in a mental hospital.
Almost even mental hospital. Yeah, but to continue, it's like I think we should have mental hospitals, but not in the way that they did in the 40s, 80s. Let's do it like right this time. But
Yeah, no,
I think, but I think like, don't you think everything that people mention to be a bad thing today, or is kind of like secretly good? Like,
no, not necessarily.
marriage rates are lower, but you don't have to stay with your husband who beats you. You can be gay, you can be asexual. Mental illness is higher, but people know what mental illness is, and you won't be lobotomized for like saying or like acting out a little bit. Um, House prices are higher, but like your house won't kill you, you know? And like college degrees are like more expensive, but it's the number one way to increase your growth, and about 10 times more people have college degrees, so we're more educated than the 1940s and 80s.
Well, but they're also taking on a significant amount of debt, and with the way student loans work, I know you said that the wages will, you know, quote unquote allow them to pay off the loans, but the problem is we have a predatory loan system, and so a lot of the people, like, if you take on 100,000 in loans to pay for, you know, a 4-year degree at a public university, there's almost no
Well,
way that you're going to be able to pay that off unless you're getting a degree that's going to pay you 200K a year. You know, if you get a degree that pays you an average wage, you're not going to be able to pay that off in your lifetime, just because of the
Well,
loans are
remember, it's all a choice. But if you do get a high school degree, which is your right to do or not do, you make $600 more per week than the average American. So it's like we can say, and honestly, yeah, it'd be great if college prices were lower. But is that really an argument when like 3% of the population got a college degree back then? Like we've never had a cheap college system where people went.
Well, but also I think that in the past you could get a better paying job without necessarily going to school because we had the big manufacturing post World War II boom. You know, you could literally just go to high school, get your high school diploma, and then go. And I know I'm not trying to say that let's go work in the mines again. The kids yearn for the mines, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like
Well, I
those
wasn't gonna
jobs
say
were
that.
actually able to provide you a good life, even if it came at a cost. But everything's going to come at a cost, and that's like, I think you have
Yeah.
to evaluate like what cost are we willing to actually bear for progress. You know what I mean? There's
But
always going to be
even
that
then,
cost.
it's like kind of nostalgia. Like that was and it was a good class, by the way, but it was a very specific class of people who were like union workers, like working in like a
Factories,
factory, right?
yeah.
Now, to be fair, you're way more likely to die in your factory job back then than today. But even then, it was still like pretty cushy. But it was a very small subsect. Like if it was so easy to get a job in
Well, in
that
the
kind of
Midwest, it was
area,
huge.
and then well, yeah, yeah, Midwest was big, but most of the country didn't have it. But if it was so easy to have, then you wouldn't see such a high poverty rate. You wouldn't see actually a higher percentage of two income earners for households. You wouldn't see higher food insecurity. You wouldn't see a higher unemployment in the 1940s and 80s, with the exception of the early 40s, which was like the end of World War II, where it was like 2% or like 0.5%, but that doesn't count as a wartime economy. I don't think any of those time periods were actually good. I think you're just thinking of a specific class that people like to push. In fact, it was actually mainly propaganda from the U.S. to show like the Soviets that we were better.
Well, partially, but I mean, you can't deny that union membership was significantly higher back then, and it's significantly tailed off now. I think it was
But what
about
are the
30.
effects of it? Like, despite the fact that membership was higher, we make 9 to 13% more income, and that's only the 70s. If you look at the 40s, it's even better. Uh,
Less
we are way
benefits,
less at risk at our
most
jobs.
retirement plans,
Like, did union memberships
no pensions.
help with the fact that? Hold on, did union membership help with the fact that you were more than 5 times more likely to die in your job back then? Like,
No,
it's
but
not
that had to do with
necessarily like
like
a good thing
physical
by
nature.
itself.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Yeah,
I'm saying it was a contributor where, in the modern world, you would think that okay, we have this better life, but then shouldn't we just keep pushing for things like unions that just like continue to make things better? I mean,
I mean, unions are an entity which are neither good nor bad by itself. What matters is the effect of it. And even if you think like union membership is a good thing, it doesn't mean that the time period that had unions were better. Like even if you're pro union, it doesn't change the fact that you make more money today, you're at less risk at your job today, you work less today, you have a better house today, you have about the same chance of owning a home today, despite the fact that now your home has air conditioning, heating, ventilation, electricity, more appliances. Like, whether you're pro union entity or not does not change the fact that every statistic supports the fact that life is better today.
does anybody else have any questions besides Ruby? Ruby, we're not answering anything you say, so.
Everything I say is very true. Unions are bad. See, like Ruby wouldn't like it, you know.
No, of course not.
What was Ruby's question, anyways? It was probably
I don't know.
bad.
Oh, why is your English bad?
Yeah,
It's,
come
it's
on.
only bad for you, Ruby. That's all.
Does anyone
it's
else
all an
have any
act.
questions?
I don't think any other questions were asked. I think you guys both did a really good job.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Well, cool. Do you guys want to move to closings?
Yeah, you can start with the closing, Elid.
Okay. So I think that there's some good data that shows that certain elements were better historically than they are now. I think that there has been a decline in college affordability, entry level jobs. I mean, this is just kind of more of my personal opinion, but I think the whole movement of smart things and data collection has led to a decline in privacy. I think that if we truly are living in a better time than we were historically, I think that there's certain things like marriage and dating and child fertility. It's just fertility rates. I think those things should be going up and not down, even if it's more of a survival thing. I mean, we're living in a safer, better time. There should be no better time than to raise bigger families because you can. It's more, if it is more affordable, if it is safer, you would think that something like that would be showing up, and you're not seeing it in Japan. You're not seeing it here. You're not seeing it across Europe, and I do think that Dak has made some good points, and I don't disagree with a lot of the things that he says, but again, just statistically, I think that if we're truly improving life and improving society, there's just certain metrics that should be going in a different direction than they currently are. So, thank you.
Yeah, for my closing statement, I would say that there were two types of data that was shown today. One is just the pure numbers, the fact that you make more today, you're safer today, your house has better heating, air conditioning today, you're more likely to drive today, medicine is better today, you live longer today, you're less likely to die of cardiovascular disease today, medicine is better today. And then there's the other stat that like looks bad on the surface, but is actually something everyone supports. Lower marriages on the face is bad, but is it not a good thing that women no longer have to be with the husband that beats them? Um, Unions are lower today, but is it not good that the things that unions are supposed to give us, like higher wages and safer work conditions, are actually more prevalent today? Um, Fertility rates are lower today, but is it not good that people aren't so scared that they'll lose their lives like tomorrow or in a year or in 2 years that they feel coerced into having children that they don't want? I mean, every single statistic that another statistic he gave was the weakening of the dollar. But even then, don't you want higher inflation when inflation means better economic times, while deflation means the worst period in American history, which was the Great Depression? I think every statistic you can show that you could even like try to construe as life being better back then is actually just an argument that today is better. So, given all of that, given the fact that every single data point and every single metric and every single uh, view shows that we are better off today, I think it's just completely obvious that you'd way rather live in 2025. And if you don't think so, then, I mean, don't own a phone, uh, have a little less money, and live in a smaller house. And then you can kind of have the experience. And maybe go to the hospital less and don't have a college education. That was another thing. You mentioned the fact that college is so expensive today, but we've never had a cheap college system that people went to. The fact that the only time period that he could mention where colleges were more affordable and that's what we should do, the fact that only 3% of people actually went to those colleges is kind of a non-point because sure, it can be cheaper, but if no one goes, then the effect is zero. So, given all of those facts, I think it's pretty clear that today is just way better than the 1940s and 80s. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Felix, I don't know if you had any closing statements, but thank you, Dak, for that lovely debate.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and thank you,
Yeah,
Felix.
thanks,
and
Joe.
thanks to
Someone should
everybody else
post the thing on the polls. Good to talk to y'all.